Okay, I think I'm going to get started with my project. So again, my name's Forrest. I'm one of the interns this summer. I graduated this past May from Boston College, where I was studying climate change and societal adaptations with a minor focus on urban design. So this summer internship was a really exciting opportunity for me to merge two of my passions, which is sustaining the planet and creating healthy, vibrant places for people. And so, as we know, transportation is one of the leading greenhouse gas emission sectors globally, and especially here on the Cape, where transportation, as you all probably know, gets really bad in the summers, and there's increasing demands for affordability and concern around that creating and finding ways to make mobility more affordable, more sustainable, and more enjoyable for residents is really important. So I wanted to dive into the biking network here in Barnstable. So just to give a little background on biking on Cape Cod, it's a really popular activity for both recreational and transportation purposes. Over 200,000 people are using the bike paths on Cape Cod every year. And there's a lot of benefits that come with this. So speaking to personal health, it increases physical exercise, mental rejuvenation, and offers an affordable form of transportation. Environmentally speaking, it reduces our reliance on vehicles and reduces traffic congestion, which improves our air quality for our communities. And at a community scale and looking at our economy, it increases foot traffic for businesses, increases ecotourism, community connectivity, quality of life, and can even reduce parking requirements. So when a city promotes cycling, it actually reduces their need for parking, and that space can be used for other purposes, such as natural conservation or other uses of the town. And Cape Cod is a really unique place to have a bike network with our scenic roads, historic villages, and outdoor quality of life. Having a bike network here would really enhance and preserve the existing character of Cape Cod. So just to speak a little bit about what's already going on to improve our bike network, Vision 88 is a plan created by the Cape Cod Commission to create an 88-mile trail that spans the length of the Cape, all the way from Woods Hole up to Provincetown. And so this is an incredible effort to create connectivity across the Cape and, a bike highway, if you will, to go anywhere you want to go along the Cape. But it's still really important to create local connectivity, to go beyond recreation to a daily utilization of a bike network. So before we dive deeper, I want to kind of explain what the infrastructure of a bike network looks like. So there's three main types. There's bike routes, which are typically mixed in with the traffic on a roadway. So maybe a wide shoulder, and typically this is the least safe option. These are for people who are very enthusiastic about biking, go-getters. They'll do it regardless. Bike lanes is a step up in safety. So these are visually separated lanes or paths or sections of a roadway marked for bicycle use. And then the third step, and really the safest option, is a bike path or a shared use path. And so these are typically adjacent or separate from a roadway, and therefore pedestrians and bicyclists alike. So these offer a lot of benefits. Shared use paths, when developed in continuity with connectivity between the paths, can really benefit local businesses. They're meant for pedestrians, cyclists, skateboarders, rollerbladers, you name it, but it's a safe path away from vehicle traffic. And so it reduces that interface and opportunity for interaction with cyclists and pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles. So shared use paths is what I'm going to focus on for this project. So just to go into some of the benefits of shared use paths, there was a study done by Kittleson and Associates in partnership with Mass Trails. And they had some key findings on the benefits of 4 shared use paths studied over a 4-month period from July to October in 2019. So economically, these paths generated $378,000 to $9.2 million per path for businesses near the trails by increasing foot traffic and business during the 4-month study period alone. In terms of health, these paths increased physical activity for residents living nearby and saved a combined $2.8 million on healthcare expenditures across the 4 paths in 2019. During the study period, the shared use paths increased active commute trips as opposed to motor vehicle commute trips by 90,000 and reduced motor vehicle travel by 700,000 miles, which had its own environmental benefits. So the reduction in motor vehicle trips led to $2.2 million in savings from reductions in the social costs of greenhouse gases and other emissions during the 4-month study period alone. So aside from those really astounding benefits that shared use paths can offer, they also typically have wider lanes to accommodate both cyclists and pedestrians safely away from traffic without needing its own lane and a sidewalk. It can be kind of combined together. And they're much safer, which is increasingly important for the group that categorizes themselves as interested but concerned regarding cycling on the Cape for safety reasons. But we have to remember that connectivity when establishing bike networks is really crucial for increasing ridership beyond recreation and as daily use. So now, biking in Barnstable, what does that look like? Why do we need it? Barnstable has the leading on the Cape of bicyclist vehicle accidents. There was 112 crashes in 3 years, which included 7 fatalities and 59 serious hospital requiring injuries. So it's clearly a need for safety and increasing the continuity and connectivity of our network here in Barnstable. So taking a look at the existing infrastructure in Barnstable, you can see on this map here that these light blue lines are the existing sidewalks in Barnstable. The thick red lines are the shared use paths that we currently have or that were recently established. And the blue paths are shared use paths currently under construction or near completion. So the one here, this is Bearseas Way. And then this is the Cape Cod Rail Trail extension that goes from Barnstable to Yarmouth. So those are really exciting additional shared use paths that will be coming online soon. But if you look at this map, I think you can clearly tell that there's quite a few areas where we lack that continuity between not only our shared use paths, but also our sidewalks. And I should mention that sidewalks typically aren't considered part of the infrastructure of a bike network. But for the sake of this project, I wanted to include them because they do offer a type of infrastructure that cyclists can use. And so although that may need to be improved in years to come, it's at least something that cyclists can use aside from a road where the accidents frequently happen. So it's really important to consider, where do people need to go? Why would they use a bike network? So some local considerations that I wanted to take into account were natural elements. So conservation areas, beaches, it may be hard to see here, but all the green area is natural and protected space. And then the beaches are here in yellow. Another thing I wanted to consider was commercial and business centers along with multifamily land use. That was important to consider, especially with our focus on affordable housing, that people living in multifamily units would have other options aside from vehicles to get around town, go to work, access services and everyday amenities that they needed. So that was another important layer. And then finally, cultural and historic districts. This is important not only for just enjoying the bike network as you're using it, but for tourists who want to come and access the bike network to travel around Barnstable and see what the culture here is. So these are all of the considerations layered together, and you can see here as well, we have some recreational locations. So parks, playgrounds, museums, libraries, beaches, things like that. And this shows the existing network laid on top of that, along with some trails that people might want to use in the natural spaces. So you can see here are the trails or the shared use paths we have. But again, if you wanted to go to Sandy Neck, there isn't really a sidewalk or a road to access that area. All of this amazing recreation here isn't very accessible. I've personally tried to run on this road and quickly got off because I just didn't feel safe. So there's evident areas where we're lacking that connectivity that is really crucial to make this network a more viable option for people on a daily basis. And so here I've just kind of circled some areas where we really do need that expanded connectivity. So considering those elements along with public input that was collected by the Cape Cod Commission on where residents either asked or desired improvements, upgrades, or just basic infrastructure for cycling, I've created a map of my recommendations for expanding the connectivity of our network. So you see that here in purple are all of the routes and paths, the shared use paths that I recommend adding for establishing the connectivity that we so desperately need in this network. And you can also see here that in the green is shared use paths that DPW is already planning on developing. So these are in the regional priority plan. So considering the sidewalks and where we don't have sidewalks, I've been able to establish some recommendations. And just another visual to see this. So here is all of the existing and progress and planned infrastructure, including the sidewalks that will be coming online soon for residents, paired now with the recommendations that I think visually you can at least see that that would create a much more connected network for residents here in Barnstable. And so just a few takeaways from this project. Continuity and connectivity are really key ingredients to attract people to use a bike network beyond the avid enthusiasts to make it more viable and safe for everyday use. And I think it's really crucial to perceive this network as a service rather than just interconnected routes for people. And that's the way that we establish the connectivity and eventually continuity that will make this an enjoyable and safe option for residents for years to come.
If there's any questions, and I'll hand the mic so people in the Zoom can.
This is actually a great idea. I actually visited Falmouth when I first moved here, and they have like this amazing, like bike path situation.
The Shining Sea.
It was really impressive to me, you know, being new to the Cape, and just I didn't feel unsafe, and there were a lot of people and families, and I mean I walk pretty slow, but it took me a while to get through it, but I was actually very impressed by it. And I know Harwich also, I believe, has something similar. The only question that I have really is in plans for the future, was anything with like law enforcement, any communication with safety when now you're extending something and more people will be on it, just how to keep people safe? Will they be, is there a plan for more patrol? Will there be like bike cops? I don't know, like what, is there something in the
Are you
works
talking about, just to clarify the question, beyond reducing the interaction between vehicles, more like safety on the shared use paths themselves?
Yes, because people are going to be walking on it, people are going to be biking on it, and if the goal would be from, like you said, Woods Hole all the way to P-Town, I think that's amazing. But you know, like, what is there a plan for, you know, just safety for those people that are on there?
Yeah, I think as of now, there's a general manner that you use when you're on a bike path. So they have signs up that, you ride on the right, and if you're passing, you go on the left. You alert people with noise if you're going to pass them. And you try and just keep to your side as you're using it for people going, opposite directions. As for policing, I really don't know if there's an initiative for that, or if that's something that's really demanded or a big concern. So I don't have an answer for that right now, but I do know that there's at least typically signs to try and get people on the same page for using the shared use paths. Jane, did you have something?
The Cape Cod Commission Transportation section works a lot on how do we implement both complete streets, which is a construction issue where you want to make towns safe for all road users, and I think most places on the Cape have adopted that, as well as they had a year-long community feedback, which I was a member of, on something called Vision Zero, which is a vision out of Scandinavia, out of Helsinki, to have zero injury crashes, injury accidents for all road users. So people in vehicles, bikes, and walking. But the members of this Cape Cod Commission hearing discussion session that went year long on Vision Zero. Vision Zero is all about safety, and a lot of members of law enforcement were part of that. So, and DPWs were represented as well. So as organizations that are involved with actually rolling this out consider it, safety is, front and center, and it has to be.
Just a suggestion that what a lot of these trails, the one in Brewster and the one in Harwich, they originated when they took the railroad tracks, when there's no more trains anymore. So they went and they converted those into pathways for bikes and people to walk. It really is a natural transition to take those rail beds that are built for train tracks and convert those into usable space for people to walk. I'm just curious, on some of your extensions, were you able to kind of see any of that, or did you look at any of I know we have active rail. I'm not talking about active rail, but really the inactive ones.
Yeah, so I think the active rail in Barnstable is actually used for trash and waste transportation off the Cape. So I don't think that they're looking at decommissioning that now or anytime soon. The recommendations I was making were pretty much all just roads with maybe a wide shoulder, maybe not even that. So they didn't have sidewalks, they didn't have any sort of infrastructure other than asking a bicyclist to ride mixed in with the traffic. And that's why I was prioritizing those connections, because they just didn't have any safe options for cyclists.
Believe it or not, a lot of those rail systems, when they get converted, they're actually given over to the state. So it is an easier transition to convert state property into a trail system. Or believe it or not, there are some places where they're still owned by the railroads, and they're willing to kind of give up the easements for those to do that. So it is I've done it several times in different towns. So it is something that is a low-hanging fruit to try to get that accomplished, just as a point of interest.
Definitely, that's a great recommendation. Thank you.
Just a couple things on the safety. For example, with the Shining Sea Bikeway in Falmouth, the police force has bicycle riders themselves, and they go through the bikeway. They also have poles that are removed so that ambulances can come down the shared use bike path. And it's also building a business network along the Shining Sea Bikeway, where they have ice cream and they have shaved ice, finished shaved. There's a variety of things. So it really builds its own economy itself.
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none. Nice job, Forrest.